Hi everyone, James Bishop here. I'm the Global Senior Director of Demand Partnerships at SiteMinder, and welcome to this week's update from the World Hotel Index. When the index was launched on the 29th of April, every hotelier in nearly every corner of the world was confronted by perhaps the only line they wished would curve upwards rather than continue to flatten. That is the global booking volume, which at the time was just 10.7% of what it was the year prior, and almost every sign indicated there would be a lack of positive movement for months to come. It seemed inconceivable that 10.7% would more than double 4 weeks later, and yet here we are, cautiously observing a reading of 24.5% in global booking momentum and counting. Let's rewind to February for a moment. While the world remained mostly oblivious to the impending impact of COVID-19, the alarm bells were being heard clearly in Iceland. The country was already testing for coronavirus, even before its first case, and by the end of the month had declared a state of emergency that triggered aggressive contact tracing and quarantine. The quick action has been credited for containing the spread of the virus, and in mid-May, Iceland's Prime Minister announced plans to reopen the country's borders to tourists by the 15th of June. It's been said that COVID-free is the new 5-star rating, and the Prime Minister's announcement could be evidence of that theory. In the last 2 weeks, Iceland's hotel bookings have doubled from 12.9% of 2019 levels to 27.6% and overtaken the global average. Only New Zealand surpassed Iceland as the top high riser this past week. Hotel bookings within the Pacific nation have gone from strength to strength since lockdown began lifting earlier this month, and now sitting at over half of last year's booking levels. They rose 12% in just the last week alone, and will likely accelerate further if plans proceed to allow Australian visitors from the 1st of July. Speaking of Australia, it's rising steadily, with hotel booking volumes now well above the global average at 34% year on year. Behind Iceland's week-on-week growth is Norway's. The fellow Nordic country surpassed the global average on 10th of May and has since jumped to 31% of 2019 levels, cementing its place beside Germany, Iceland, and the Netherlands as one of Europe's few markets outperforming the global average. And on the topic of Europe, could Portugal be the first Southern European country to re-emerge from the pandemic? Beachgoers took their first dip this past week after the government announced a phased lifting of lockdown restrictions, and a jump in hotel bookings mirrors their excitement. In 2 weeks, they've surged from just 7.6% of last year's levels to 20.9%. Incredibly, the volume of hotel bookings in neighbouring Spain, which has reported the 4th highest number of coronavirus cases in the world, has also doubled from 9% to 18% year on year in just this past week, after the country's government declared quarantine restrictions would lift this summer and urged international holidaymakers to return. For the 4th consecutive week, Taiwan's hotel bookings have continued to rise, now sitting at 76.6% of 2019 levels and leading the world in booking momentum. And while the countrywide volume in the US remains slow to increase, Miami's has lifted 6.7% in the past week, and Tampa's now exceeds last year's volumes at 125%. They're the headlines this week. As always, you can check out the live World Hotel Index on SiteMinder.com or receive this update by signing up for Home for Hotels. See you next week.